When you're an individual that dreams to become the best of himself, dealing with failures can be one intensely suffocating and torturous experience. So much so that most of us yearn to avoid those experiences through self-sabotaging ourselves by deliberately ceasing all forms of effort to improve and eventually achieve. A lot of us fear failure so immensely that we completely abandon any thoughts of taking action. Basically, if we don't make an attempt at something, we won't ever experience any failure. True, but you also won't ever experience any glory whatsoever. Most of us tried our best to remove or forget about this fear because we also have a deep underlying desire to succeed. But for some untouched reasons, we still are unable to get past that default reaction of being chronically hesitant, despite our frustration to pull the trigger and take actions. Why is this happening to us? Well, the truth is, our fear of failure is deeply rooted in the way we are taught on how to deal with them or approach them in our childhoods. And for most of us, unfortunately, we're not taught to embrace failure and slowly learn from them to improve ourselves. Instead, we are severely or heavily punished for failure and taught to be fearful of failure and ashamed of ourselves when we fail, regardless if it's by your parents at home or your teachers at school. And this form of conditioning caused us to become extremely anxious and nervous when there are any chances or risks of failure in an endeavor that we're trying to attempt, which resulted in us completely avoiding and disregarding that attempt even though we objectively know that it is good for us. The fear that we're so worried about is not the objective fear of coming up short in our attempts at something. It's actually the fear of being humiliated, embarrassed, condemned, and ridiculed when we come up short. The fear of deprecatively questioning our worth as an individual when our efforts had resulted in what seems to be a waste of time and life. Exactly the same way we are narratively or behaviorally taught and induced from an early age that failure equals worthlessness. So what do we do with this? Well, we simply change the narrative of how we would view and react to failure and then slowly condition ourselves to become embracing and motivating towards failure. Now, looking at failure itself in a methodical and objective manner, it is simply a learning process towards eventual refinement. Like when you're trying to become proficient in an instrument, you are technically bound to make mistakes, and those mistakes are your failures. And when we make mistakes, the frustration that we experience naturally precipitates the need for answers or solutions to correct them. That is why, objectively, we try again and again and again in order to eventually find the root cause of the problem that led towards our failures, and then finally constructing and implementing the solutions through making the necessary additions, subtractions, and/or changes. Failure is a normal part or an essential component of the process towards proficiency in any field. It's a sign of imminent or eventual progression. It's not a sign that you are a completely worthless or incompetent individual. Now, that is the objective and straightforward way to look at how we should deal with or react to failure after we experience them. But most of us, due to the crippling conditioning that we've been instilled during our adolescent years, that frustration we experience will instead, by default, turn into a wallowing period of questioning our capabilities and potential. All because the way we view or approach failure way before it happens is already through a negatively deprecative lens. That is why we are so easily tempted to quit or cease all future thoughts and intentions to continue. So, we simply need to replace that lens into an opportunistic and reinvigorating one, so that we don't become demoralized to try again after our first encounter with failure during our commitment to an endeavor. Now, how most people in the world approach or view failure is that it is much, much worse than doing nothing. Because when you fail, you have to experience all those painfully intense negative emotions from yourself, and to add further insult to injury, the demoralizingly tormenting reactions or responses from other people that witness it or know about it. Well, let me ask you gentlemen a question, 2 questions to be exact. If you think failure is much worse than doing nothing, then why do you feel the absolute worst about yourself when you have absolutely nothing to do? If you think experiencing failure is depressing, then why are you the most depressive when you have absolutely nothing to do with your life? Why is that? Why do you say that you don't want to do anything, but at the same time still desperately and secretly looking for something significant to do? It's because pushing yourself and learning about the extent of your capabilities and character, despite coming up short, is unconsciously but intrinsically so much more motivating and accomplishing than just sitting around and doing nothing. Forever wondering what you could be, what you could do, and where you stand. Having somewhere worthwhile to go or something significant to do will always help to fill the void of our continuous need for novelty and conquest, especially as men. You will absolutely be frustrated when you fail, yes, but at the very least you will have a good estimate of what level you're at and where you can improve to take you to a higher level. In other words, you will have directions to go and tasks to be worked on, which objectively should make you feel and look so much less like an actual useless and worthless bum who absolutely have nothing to do. And which objectively makes you well ahead of those people who wouldn't even try to make an attempt. And let's be honest, those people who ridiculed you for your failure when they witnessed it or heard about it are the same people that secretly wishes that they could have your courage to try. They're just making a desperate resort to take attention away from their own lack of resolve and of course their depressing day-to-day existence, since they have nothing else better to do than to spread hate. I know this because I was one of these wretched cunts back in the day, always laughing and ridiculing others for their failed attempts to be someone significant or great, while in truth I secretly, deep down, wished I could have their strength, courage, confidence, indifference, and motivation despite all the odds that had gone against them. I secretly envied them and admired them despite them coming up short. I just highlighted their failure to make me feel good about myself, that I don't have to get through those frustrations and ridicules to bring me further down. Because I vividly knew, despite my best effort to disregard and forget about them, I would learn way more about myself and earn way more respect from people if I have what they have. So you tell me, who is more pathetic, worthless, and inferior? You, the one who made that attempt, or them, the one who wished they could and still do nothing about it? Nothing comes good out of sitting still and doing nothing. Life is all about striving despite all the resistance, as it is the only way you can eventually be satisfied with the one you've lived. We always want to have an idea and eventually a reassuring feeling of all the good qualities that we can have that make up a great human being, and they all don't come from sitting still and doing nothing. A step backwards will always be better than taking no step at all, because no human being wants to feel imprisoned, especially in their own mundaneness of emptiness. Thank you for watching.